I'm going to start this video in a bit of a mad place, but I disagree with James Clear. Or at least I disagree with the majority of people's interpretation of the book Atomic Habits. Because for as much as James Clear and Atomic Habits has done incredible things for millions of people around the world to help so many more people understand the power of tiny, consistent habits and how they can transform our lives, I think that lots of people read and understand the book in a slightly lazy and oversimplistic way, and that leads to one of two negative outcomes. Because James has this quote that you don't rise to the level of your ambitions, you fall to the level of your systems. And what he means there is that your daily inputs are far more important than your grand, lofty ambitions, because without those inputs, without taking the actions necessary to get to where you want to be, you'll never get there. And I agree, right? Basically every video on my channel is about that idea repackaged in some way or another. I completely agree with him there. I completely agree with the logic there. But the problem is that lots of people read that book and understand it to mean something slightly different, which is that if you focus on just having lots of interesting inputs in your life, the outputs will take care of themselves. And in my experience, and when I look out into the world at other people, that isn't true. It's an overly simplistic way of looking at habits and goal setting and the relationship between the two of them that leads lots of people to be busy but not productive. Because here's the thing, yes, inputs are obviously incredibly important. You're not going to achieve anything unless you're doing the right things to get there. We know that much to be true, but lots of people seem to be optimizing for inputs without first understanding what outputs they want. And it's the reason why so many people you know on the internet wake up at 5 a.m. because the 5 a.m. club book told them to, and then they get into an ice bath or a hot sauna because Joe Rogan told them to, and then they journal or do some sort of meditation because Chris Williamson spoke about it on Modern Wisdom once, right? They do all of these inputs, which on their own are good. I'm not discrediting any of those practices, but they stack and stack and stack these inputs without ever asking, where are they taking me? What are these inputs doing for my output? How are they helping me make progress towards meaningful goals? Because in many ways, that's the core to a meaningful life. It's being able to have these big goals, these big missions, and then gradually move towards them, right? Struggle for years to make progress towards something which one day may come off, and if it does, will feel incredible. But none of that is served by simply doing difficult things that look interesting in the moment, doing random things consistently because you heard on the internet through some channel that it's a good idea to do. And that's where the problem with Atomic Habits comes in. Because so many people seem to be focusing just on those inputs and stacking lots of interesting habits together, but never actually getting anywhere in life, never actually making any progress, never actually doing the things that they said they were going to do. And that's because positive habits are only a compounding force when they're pointing in the right direction. Effort is only useful if it's invested into something meaningful. So you could spend the next 2, 3, 4 years doing all the right things. You could have the best morning routine, the most optimized sleep routine. You could eat the best foods and listen to the best podcasts and read the best books. But if it's not moving you in a general direction of somewhere where you want to go, if you haven't even decided where it is you want to go, then yes, all of those things are good. There's no downside to doing them, but they're not going to get you anywhere in life. And then you're going to wind up thinking that somehow you're the problem. You're not the problem. The problem is your lack of goal setting. The problem is your lack of clarity of where you want your life to be in a few years' time. You have to first decide that before you do any of this self-improvement stuff. Just reading 10 pages of a book a day has never transformed anybody's life if they don't apply that knowledge. Just turning up to the gym for 5 minutes has never transformed somebody's physique if they don't know what they're doing. Just tracking calories has never transformed somebody's body weight if they don't first understand how many calories they should be eating in the first place, right? Outputs need to come before inputs. Inputs are important, but just focusing on them will get you nowhere. And so maybe there's a second version of that James Clear quote, which is, you don't rise to the level of your inputs, you fall to the level of your outcomes. Because all of this is pointless. All of this self-improvement, this optimization, this learning how to be productive is completely useless if you're not pointing it in the right direction, if you're not using it to charge towards goals that mean something to you. So you can do this self-improvement stuff if it makes you feel better. You can have the morning routine and do the journaling and do the meditation and do the breath work and all this stuff. And I'm sure it's going to be good for you, but it's not going to fundamentally reshape your life until you first understand what outcomes you need. and then work backwards from those outcomes to determine the correct inputs. So does that mean James Clear is a force for bad? No, absolutely not. But does it mean that I think that people need to pay a little bit more attention to what that book's actually telling them to do? Yes, because Atomic Habits has become memed in culture so much that people understand it to mean that if they just do some little things every day for long enough, their life will transform. But that's not true. You first need to understand what you want your life to look like and then work backwards from there. If you do that, your life will change. And if you don't, you will be this super optimized person who is optimized for absolutely nothing useful.